Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 654 62nd Street here in Springville. We're located on the left side of the home, same side as the RV pad is at. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the house. So right at the very edge of the concrete here, right before it hits the gravel, you've got a 3-inch ABS cleanout. We're going to check the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Waters are running, and we are zeroed out. Off we go. The camera is upside down right now, if you didn't figure that out already. There's no anti-gravity system in this sewer line. Thus far, super clean sewer line. That thing looks fantastic. Most notably, no grease buildup, which is a fairly rare thing to see these days. Looks like we're hitting a transition right here. A little bit of standing water right at the transition. Well, at least it looked like it. We'll see how much this persists. Oh, that might be our main. That appears to be the main lateral connection right there. Now we're going to go locate real quick here. We'll the whole line drain out, and we'll take a look at the standing water. The plus side with the standing water, I always let the line drain out because standing or flowing water through the line will exaggerate the depth of water. This almost looks like, the way that this thing is running here, I don't know that 48 feet even puts us in the road. What this might be, I'm going to push out a little bit further here. Some towns purpose-build party lines. That's kind of what that looks like. It's very reminiscent of how they do things in Newburgh. They've been building party line systems out there for, almost the town's inception. But what you end up with is a Y connection between this property and the one adjacent to it. They come together, and then they shoot out. Yep, there's the main right there. That's the true main lateral. But yet, what we saw prior to this point is a tie-in with the neighbor. In 13 years, I think I've scoped about 3 lines in Springfield. So it's one of those, most likely there's no issue with that party connection at all. Some parts of town, the cities don't like them, but I would imagine, as new as this is here, this is probably all up to snuff. Anytime there is a Y connection coming in from somewhere, I'm going to always recommend you look into it, just to make sure. Anyway, we're going to go locate here real quick, and then we'll pull back once the line's drained. Just located the camera head. So as you face this house from the street, assuming that is a party Y connection there, which I imagine it is, it looks like you've got the same setup just to the right of your property. You'll see a big white PVC clean out. In this case, this line orients to the left side property line. So if you're tied in with the neighbor, it's the house directly to the left of this house. In a lot of places, down here I don't know off the top of my head, you'd have to contact the city. A lot of times the city will end up taking responsibility from that point forward. At least that point forward. Sometimes it's a little bit prior to that, like where the PVC transition is. Sometimes that's kind of in their easement or right of way or what have you. So you'd have to contact the city and find out how they divvy up responsibility. It's a nice thing to know from the standpoint if there is ever an issue beyond what appears to be the shared part of the line, how responsibility is divvied up in that event. Do you split costs with the neighbor, or is that city responsibility to handle it from that point forward? Anyway, line's almost completely drained. I wanted to start pulling back before it got bone dry because the neighbor is tied in. I don't have control over their water flow, so I'm trying to pull it back here while I have an opportunity to get it almost completely drained in this part. Anyway, straight across from there is a tie-in. This looks like 4-inch pipe, and it looks like Right as you go through the Y connection, the line looks like it bumps out to 6-inch diameter PVC. All right, just located here just for reference. As you stand in the street facing the front of the house, just to the left of the driveway, this is very close. This is like at the very front right corner of the neighbor's yard. Again, this is the house to the left of this one. We're just barely into that corner of the yard, and then straight out from that, the sidewalk, you'll notice there is a kind of a funny little skinny strip of concrete where all the other sidewalk squares are normal size. You've got a really skinny strip of concrete. That strip of concrete appears to be directly over top the sewer line once the two lines come together. That kind of gives you an idea visually as how the line is routed. So right there is where the belly dissipates off of that Y connection. Thus far, we're hovering around the 1/4 inch or so ballpark there with the standing water. This is not the kind of standing water I'm typically looking for here as far as flow problems go. Right there, you get up to about 1 inch of standing water. Just barely. Transition joint there looks tight and sealed up. So the belly there runs from around 40 feet to about 50 feet, and it varies in depth of water. A lot of it is under 1 inch. In fact, I think the majority of it is. You've got a few feet or so there that's at about 1 inch of standing water. A lot of the rest of it's about 1/4 of an inch or so. So there's not even enough buildup in here to recommend $5 in drain cleaning on this. This is not the kind of location here, or belly anyway, that I would generally recommend a repair on. It's too minor in my opinion. It's also a good distance from the house. The further and further a belly gets from the home, the least likely it is to actually lead to a backup. If a blockage could even theoretically develop here, you're going to have to fill up at least 40 feet of pipe just to get back to the house. There is very few blockages made out of proper items like toilet paper, for instance, that can withstand the head pressure of 40 feet of pipe filling up behind it. If you're wadding up a whole bunch of paper towels and things like that, which will clog up a perfectly graded part of the sewer line, let alone a part where there's some standing water, that's a little bit different story. But I'm not inspecting lines to be abused no end. So there's a very, very clean sewer line. There's no blockage evidence here. There's no backup debris. It's a clean sewer line. And all the pipe there is intact. Yeah, if that were the first 10 feet of pipe right out of the gate, I'd probably feel a little bit differently about it. The closer in, it's more likely that a blockage will lead to a backup when they're closer in. So, in bellies and plastic pipe, I've cambered about 25,000 sewer lines at this point in my career. Bellies in plastic pipe are a very different animal than bellies in older pipe materials like concrete and cast iron. That combination is not a great one. That smooth pipe wall the plastic pipe provides mitigates a lot of buildup on its own. So as long as you're not feeding the line items that are improper and are not intended to go down the sewer line, you're really not giving it much to build up. So a belly like that is the kind that I mean, in general, is not going to act up on you unless you are treating this thing pretty poorly. All right, I just ran backwards into the foundation wall. Pipe is looking good here. And part of the reason I go backwards like this, some people are savvy and they clean their line right before the sale of a home to spiff it up, especially if they've got a belly and also it's a household that likes to dump their deep fat fryers down the sink all the time, and they end up with tons of grease built up, which honestly will end up exaggerating the look of a belly. Stuff like grease, cooking oil, which is not supposed to go down your line to begin with, likes to build up in standing water. It'll build up anywhere, but it likes to do so a little more so in standing water, because the debris ends, or the oil goes to the top of the water line and it starts to stick to the sidewalls. Anyway, sorry I had to pause the camera there for a second. Sorry I'm getting sidetracked when I was just saying there. But anyway, leading back to the greasing, some people will clean their lines up preemptively so they look nicer for a sale. The reason I go backwards like that is there is almost no company out there that will run a hydrojetter backwards into a house. So if a line has ever caused a backup before, while they might run the jetter through the exterior line and get it all spiffy clean, the interior part of the line is almost always still gunked up with debris buildup going all the way back into the house. That is nice and spiffy clean going back to the foundation wall there. Not that that's a belly that I would ever predict or foresee causing recurring issues. It's not the kind of belly that can do that, not without the homeowner helping it along a great deal. So, very clean sewer line end to end here. The belly, in my opinion, is too minor in combination with being too far from the home to pose any kind of high risk for blockages and backups, not unless you're abusing the sewer line. And if you're abusing your sewer line to that extent, you're likely to get a blockage long before you get out to even that area of standing water. So, all the pipe there is intact. Everything's in good shape. Clean end to end. You have adequate flow all the way out to the main lateral connection. The one thing you might check into is just to see where the city or some cities don't take responsibility for sewer lines. Usually when you have a shared scenario like this, though, they often do because it's kind of an awkward situation if an issue does arise out beyond the shared part of the line, unless there's a pre-existing easement in place or something of that nature. So just from the standpoint of knowing how responsibilities are divvied up in the event an issue does ever arise at that point. So anyhow, sewer line is functioning properly at this time. The big thing in keeping your line clean, this goes for any line out there. I'm a big sticker on grease. I'm sure you'll end up catching on to that here as I keep talking about it. It's a huge contributing factor to a lot of flow problems out there, especially when you have kids in the house that like to ball up their toilet paper. Rule of thumb with grease, if you've got enough grease or oil on your pans that when you turn them sideways, this is when the pans are hot or warm anyway, if it runs off the pan in beads or worse, it's at that point you want to do something about it. Wipe the pans out with a paper towel after they cool down, and or pour the grease into a jar. You just don't want it going down the sewer line. As far as, a thin little coating of Pam spray goes, that's no big deal. Hot water and soap does the job on that. Just keep your hot water running for about a minute after you're done washing the dishes. That helps to ensure any amount of oil or grease that does get down the line, it helps to keep it melted and emulsified till it gets to the main. Anyway, that's the PSA on grease there.